It's the middle of the brutal Korean War. A Navy ship, the HMCS Cayuga, is stuck in a storm of gunfire and chaos. Below deck, in a tiny room being used as a hospital, explosions shake the walls and the floor tilts wildly with every hit. Inside, something unbelievable is happening. A man, calm and focused, is leaning over a soldier who's been badly wounded. He's the ship's doctor. Or at least that's what everyone thinks. His hands move with steady confidence as he performs a complicated surgery. He pulls out pieces of metal, ties off torn blood vessels, and stitches up deep wounds like he's done it 100 times before. Every move, every cut, every stitch seems to prove that he's a brilliant surgeon. But here's the shocking truth. Everyone on that ship, from the newest soldier to the top officers, has been fooled. Because the man saving lives that day isn't a doctor at all. His real name? Ferdinand Waldo Demara. A master of lies, a man who could become anyone. He pretended to be doctors, teachers, prison wardens, even monks. And people believed him. He had no medical degree, he never went to medical school. And yet, on that warship, under pressure and surrounded by death, he saved lives. So how did he pull it off? How did someone with zero real training manage to fake it? And not just survive, but become a war hero? And what happened when his biggest life finally caught up with him? Ferdinand Waldo Demara was born in 1921 in Lawrence, Massachusetts. At first, his family was doing well. They had money and lived comfortably. But when the Great Depression hit, everything changed. They lost almost everything, and young Demara felt the shock of going from rich to poor. It left a mark on him. He went to a Catholic school, and it didn't take long for people to realize this kid was really smart. He had an amazing memory and could remember things after reading them just once. But even with that big brain, he dropped out of high school. Why? School bored him. Grades didn't matter to him. What he really cared about was learning. Not for a job or a diploma, but for power. He didn't want to be rich. He wanted to be important. He wanted to be, in his own words, somebody. And when it turned out that doing things the normal way wasn't getting him there, he made a decision. He'd find his own way, even if that meant lying. So how does a kid with big dreams and no high school diploma end up living one of the most unbelievable lives in modern history? How did someone with zero real training manage to fake it? And not just survive, but become a war hero? And what happened when his biggest lie finally caught up with him? Demara's dream of being somebody had to start somewhere. And it began in a strange place. Religious groups. He joined different religious orders, like the Trappists, the Benedictines, and the Brothers of Charity. Each time he used a different fake name. Why? Because these places were perfect for someone like him. They were quiet, trusted environments where no one asked too many questions. He got to learn a lot, blend in, and people respected him just for wearing a robe. But Demara could never sit still for long. He'd break little rules or get bored, and eventually they'd ask him to leave, or kick him out. Still, every time he left, he didn't give up. He just changed names, changed clothes, and tried again somewhere else. But soon, small-time faking wasn't enough. Demara wanted bigger roles and more impressive titles, so he started pretending to be professors, military officers, even psychologists. He didn't just fake his name, he faked entire careers. Sounds impossible, right? But Demara had a few secret weapons. He was a master at faking documents. He'd steal or copy real papers, then carefully change names and details to make them look official. He had a photographic memory. He'd read huge books, memorize the important parts, and repeat them like he was an expert. He always looked the part. Tweed jacket? Professor? Military uniform? Officer? Serious face and fancy words? Psychologist. He didn't just act like those people, he became them, at least in the eyes of everyone around him. But the higher he climbed, the more dangerous it got. You can't live a fake life forever without someone getting suspicious. So what happens when the lies start catching up? Demara wasn't just pretending for fun. He loved the feeling of power, the thrill of doing something bold. So what did he do next? He faked his way into one of the toughest jobs out there. A deputy warden of a prison in Texas. To get the job, he forged a new identity, again. This time, he made a fake college degree from a well-known university. It looked real, official, and no one questioned it. Before long, he was in charge of serious stuff. Inside a real prison filled with dangerous inmates. And here's the wild part. Demara didn't just sit behind a desk pretending to know what he was doing. He actually tried to improve the prison. He started education programs for inmates. He brought in new ideas to help them live better, more structured lives. He even tried to make punishment less harsh and more fair. Both guards and prisoners started to respect him, not just because of his title, but because he was smart, creative, and acted like a real leader. It almost seemed like he'd found the perfect role, a place where he could finally use his talents without anyone noticing the truth. But again, his whole world was built on lies, and lies don't last forever. Eventually, someone started checking his background, looking closer at those fake documents. Demara found out just in time. Before they could expose him, he did what he always did. He vanished, leaving behind nothing but questions and stories. So what could possibly top faking your way into running a prison? How about performing real surgeries during a war with zero medical training? Demara's lies were getting bolder, but in 1951, he pulled off something so insane, it's hard to believe it really happened. The Korean War was raging, people were dying every day, and Demara decided he was going to become a military surgeon without ever going to medical school. He stole the identity of a real Canadian doctor named Dr. Joseph Cyr. Then, using that name, he joined the Royal Canadian Navy as a medical officer. They put him on a warship, the HMCS Cayuga, right in the middle of the action. Think about that for a second. A man with zero real medical training was now in charge of treating wounded soldiers in a war zone. And somehow, he did it. He didn't just pretend. He actually performed surgeries. He pulled out bullets, treated serious injuries. Even did a lung operation, something only expert doctors would dare to do. All of this based only on what he'd read in books and remembered with his photographic memory. At night, he'd study medical textbooks. The next day, he'd go into surgery and save lives. He stayed calm under pressure, acted like a pro, and impressed everyone around him. To the crew, he was a hero. But, of course, the real doctor. Cyr still existed, back in Canada. Eventually, someone in Cyr's family saw a newspaper article about Dr. Cyr saving lives on a warship, and they recognized the man in the photo was not him. The truth exploded. Demara had just risked everything, and for a while he pulled it off. So what do you do with someone who faked being a doctor but also saved lives? When the truth came out about Dr. Cyr, the fake surgeon on the HMCS Cayuga, it hit like a bomb. People were shocked. How could a man with no medical degree, someone who had never gone to med school, get into the military, perform real surgeries, and save real lives? And no one noticed? The media couldn't get enough of the story. Newspapers all over Canada and the US ran headlines about the great imposter. Photos of Demara were everywhere. He had lied, yes, but he had also saved lives, and that made his story weirdly inspiring to some people. Instead of hiding, Demara became famous. A writer named Robert Crichton published a biography about him called The Great Imposter. It became a bestseller. Then, in 1961, Hollywood made a movie based on his life, also called The Great Imposter, starring famous actor Tony Curtis. Here's the crazy part. Demara had spent his whole life trying to be somebody, and now, because of all the fake lives he lived, he finally was somebody. Not a real doctor, not a real professor, but a celebrity, famous for being a master liar. He gave interviews, told his stories, even went on lecture tours to talk about what he did and how he did it. But inside, that restless feeling never really went away. Even after all the attention, Demara still had the urge to start over, to try new identities. He tried joining the church again under fake names. Maybe he really believed in it. Maybe he just couldn't stop playing roles. But eventually, even the great imposter had to slow down. So, what happened to Demara in the end? Did he finally find peace, or was he just waiting for his next disguise? After all the fame, interviews, books, and the Hollywood movie, Demara's life started to slow down. He stopped faking big jobs and mostly stayed out of the spotlight. But even in his later years, he didn't live a totally normal life. He ended up working as a hospital orderly, someone who helps out in hospitals but isn't a doctor or nurse. It was kind of fitting. He stayed in the world of medicine, the one place where he had shocked everyone, and somehow saved lives. People who worked with him still sometimes called him Doctor, even if they knew the truth. It was almost like they respected the legend more than the lie. In these last years, Demara showed a softer, kinder side. He spent time helping sick and dying patients, just being there for them, talking with them, comforting them. He used everything he'd learned about people from his many fake lives, but this time it felt real. He also gave talks at schools and churches sharing his story. Not to brag, but maybe as a warning or a lesson. He didn't tell people to lie. He told them what confidence, curiosity, and hard work could do, even without a degree. In 1982, Ferdinand Waldo Demara died at the age of 60. He was broke. No fancy house, no fancy title. Just a man with one of the strangest, boldest lives in history. He had once been a monk, a doctor, a prison warden, a military officer, a teacher, and more, all without the training. But in the end, he died as himself. The man who had spent his life pretending to be someone else finally faded quietly into history. And he left us with a big question. What really makes someone somebody?